What's good, YouTube? Ferdo Kings coming back at you again with another EA Sports College Football 25 video. Today, we're going to continue the topic of Build the Program. We're going to be discussing the Dynasty Deep Dive blog and all that information. So I'm trying to tie all these different parts together to give you guys an opportunity, if you don't have the time to go in and read it, that maybe on your car ride to work that you can listen to me break down and tell you what's going on so that you're not lost as you start your dynasty. Make sure that you guys are commenting down below if you enjoy this conversation. I love to receive your feedback and have that playful banter going back and forth as we discuss different methods. Some people actually opened my eyes and helped me out and clarified some of the stuff that I said in other videos. So keep giving me back that feedback, guys. Continue to hit like and subscribe for sure. Also want to throw out there, I am wearing my Oregon football swag in this video. My last video, I wore USC. I forgot to mention the purpose. USC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA just joined the Big Ten. So this is just an acknowledgement. Welcome to the Big Ten, guys. But without further ado, let's get into this video. It should be relatively short, but there are some good talking points involved here. So we don't want to overlook any of this information. So recruits, and where do they come from? Each season, EA will have more than 3,500 new recruits that are auto-generated from across the country. Just like the real world, every class is going to be different. Some years will have a plethora of great quarterback talent, while others will have fewer great options available. Similarly, the quantity and quality of prospects from each region of the country will vary. You're going to have up years and down years, just like real recruiting. Certain regions will be more consistent in caliber, quality, and type of recruits they produce than others. For example, everyone knows that Southern California is known for producing great quarterback talent. Meanwhile, East Texas consistently produces some of the best wide receivers in the country. You don't believe me? Go look at LSU and Texas's roster. They rob and pillage from East Texas for those guys to go play at those schools. EA didn't stop there, though. They wanted to go deeper to ensure they were capturing the authenticity of high school talent. Yes, East Texas is known for producing great receivers, no doubt. More specifically, though, they're known for how big and physical those receivers are. As a result, in Dynasty this year, you're going to see bigger and more physical receivers coming out of East Texas, whereas Florida is going to be more concentrated on producing incredibly fast, deep threat type receivers who might be smaller in stature. I like that. Adds a little bit of realism. You know that you got those big dogs down in East Texas. I think of being a University of Louisville fan, we've had Lamar Jackson and Teddy Bridgewater quarterback, but we also had Eli Rogers, who was a small in stature receiver that played with them in high school and came to University of Louisville before he went to the Steelers. He was a small guy, fast as all can be, but he was small in stature. So I can relate to that. Next up is what a recruit cares about. There are 14 different motivations a recruit can care about, all of which are mapped out one-to-one with your My School grades described above in that previous video. Which motivations they care about are influenced by their star rating. Not all recruits are made the same, guys. A 5-star player is going to care more about getting to the next level, winning championships, growing their NIL brand than a 2-star. In contrast, a 2-star might be more focused on, hey, I want to stay close to home. I want a coach that's going to be here for me, so they're looking at coach stability. They might be more focused in academic prestige because, hey, I know more likely I'm not going to NFL, so I'm going to go to school for my college education. That translates in this game. Every recruit's going to have 3 motivations that they are most concerned about, that they care about. These 3 motivations form what they are calling the quote-unquote ideal pitch. During your discovery process, during that stage, your job as a recruiter is to find out what their ideal pitch is as fast as possible to determine whether or not they align with your program. If a recruit doesn't align with your program, you're going to have an uphill battle to sign them. Also, you're wasting your time and resources if a guy doesn't match up and marry up to what you're doing. Sell yourself. Sell your program. Quit chasing unicorns and Bigfoot. Stay in your lane. Sign those guys that you can. You're going to have some wins and losses in recruiting. You can't always chase for the stars, guys. So anyway, continuing, there's a chance that one of the 3 ideal pitch motivations is also a deal breaker. Let me say it again. There is a chance that one of the 3 ideal pitch motivations is also a deal breaker. Deal breakers represent a motivation that a recruit is extremely passionate about, and they're never going to budge on that. If you don't satisfy their deal breaker, they won't even talk to you. Additionally, that deal breaker stays with the player forever. So once they're on your roster, they will still have the same deal breaker they had when you recruited them to your school. You can think of this like your promise to them. If you fail to uphold your side of the bargain, there's a chance they're going to decide to enter the transfer portal and they're going to bounce at the end of the season. Guys, if you lie to recruits, it impacts your coach prestige. You've got to think about that. Yeah, it's great. You can tell them anything you want to get them there. But at the end of the day, you can't sell yourself short. You've got to be able to maintain and keep your promises. Otherwise, it's going to impact your coaching prestige, your ability to bring in future recruits. All those things matter. So, it's going to be great. It's going to impact whether or not you get a top 5 or top 10 class. But at the end of the day, you're just kicking can down the road and, you're going to lose the ability to recruit some of those guys if your coach prestige is lower later. Now, recruiting pipelines, and pay attention to this. This is very important. Maybe the best piece of information in this whole blog. So recruiting pipelines. When EA analyzed historical recruiting data, it was clear that even in today's day and age, recruiting is still highly regionalized. Guys stay in their backyard. Okay? EA discussed the various recruiting strategies and tactics with current and former coaches, in particular how they handled recruiting in different areas of the country. All of that research and discussion led EA to a new way of thinking about pipelines in College Football 25. First and foremost, it was clear that not every state is created equal. Duh. California, Texas, Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Atlanta. Those are hotbeds to college football recruiting. Everybody goes to those places to find players. It's the same in this game. So, it continues. Having a pipeline in Florida is much more valuable than one in New York. It made clear that the traditional approach of having each state be its own pipeline wouldn't accurately represent the recruiting landscape today. One of our goals was to balance pipelines in terms of quantity and quality of recruits that come from them, as well as how much schools tend to look at them. So they're trying to be a little bit more fair. You don't want to sit there and deal a bad hand to those teams up in the Northeast or in the western part of the country. So, bravo. The result of this tweak was that it reshaped pipelines to represent a geographic region rather than a state-based region. For example, Florida is now broken down into 3 pipelines: North Florida, Central Florida, South Florida. Also, because it's a hotbed for recruiting, Metro Atlanta is now its own pipeline. They've combined New York and New Jersey into one pipeline. 2 states, 1 pipeline. In total, there's going to be still 50 pipelines in College Football 25, but they're going to combine areas to make it more fair, easier to recruit in some regions of the country that might not have been as fortunate as the recruiting hotbeds. Now, there's still some guardrails up there to prevent schools from, signing great players. I mean, one of them mentioned was, 5-star programs can recruit for $1,000 a week, whereas a 1-star can only recruit for $350. So you're still handcuffed with some of those limitations. But it does make it easier that there's going to be a talent maybe spread out a little bit more throughout the country, even though there are still 5, 6 really recruiting hotbeds. With the newly shaped pipelines, though, the next step was to look at every school's recruiting classes each of the last 10 years and identify which parts of the country they primarily recruit in. Let me say it again. EA Sports went in and looked at the back history for the last 10 years to find out where you get your bread buttered. Here at the University of Louisville, I'm a huge Louisville fan. We've got more players on the roster from the state of Florida than we do from the state of Kentucky. It's just a fact of life. Look at all the players we brought in. Lamar Jackson, Teddy Bridgewater, Eli Rogers, Gerard Holloman. I can go on and on. Remember, we had Bobby Petrino, who used to coach the Jaguars. He's got ties to Florida. Howard Snellenberger back in the day, he used to coach at Miami, came here. We had Charlie Strong, DC at Florida, who came here. So Louisville has deep ties to the state of Florida, and it's going to reflect in this game. We're going to have a pipeline to Florida, without a doubt, as well as probably Alabama and Georgia as well. Those states that historically recruit good in parts of the country, it's going to be reflected in this game. So anyway, EA, using that data, they developed a tiered ranking system to represent how strong a school is in a given pipeline. Each pipeline has 5 levels, and every school was given a pipeline level based on that historical data. The higher your pipeline level, the stronger your influence is in that region. This will boost a recruit's initial interest in your school, and it's also going to impact your pitches. This is all married together. It all ties together. So a school's pipeline level will never change, which ensures that schools who are historically strong recruiters in a given region will always have an advantage in that region. So, for example, Florida has historically dominated recruiting in Central Florida in areas like Lakeland, Tampa, and Orlando. I'll throw in there Ocala. Similarly, LSU regularly reaches into East Texas and all along the Gulf Coast. This also accurately reflects the challenges of recruiting to a small school that is not located in an adjacent to a strong pipeline. So there's reasons why these small schools haven't had a chance to get better. I mean, obviously time, money, resources, but you also just don't have that recruiting base in your state. So it's hard for you to get and pull in great top classes. So generally speaking, your school's pipeline will be heavily influenced the type of players that you will be able to get and where they're coming from. The bonuses for being the highest tier in a pipeline are extremely strong, and schools are incentivized to recruit in their pipelines. So stay in your lane. I've repeated myself, stay in your lane. Do what you do best. If you have a strength, why sit there and try to do something else? Keep doing what you do good. So as Oregon, expect to compete often with the likes of Washington and USC for players in Southern California and Arizona. It only makes sense. That's where they go get players. They're all recruiting from the same, backyard. Anyway, together, pipelines and deal breakers will create a much more realistic and less exploitable recruiting experience. While it's still possible to land a 4-star at a small school, it's going to require the right fit and a heavy investment of resources and time. You're not just going to throw a bunch of points at guys like you did in 14, and they're going to go to Northwest Central State. No one cares. So the hope of the EA team is that you will no longer have to make a custom house rule in your online dynasty to prevent your friends from cheesing the system. They're trying to make it as realistic as possible. Stay true to the game. So, the initial interest in top schools, let's go over that. Every recruit's going to start with a list of schools that they're interested in. When a recruit generates their initial top school list, they evaluate every school's My School grades in relation to their ideal pitch and their motivations. They will also take into account their home pipeline and proximity to home. This means that recruits from Atlanta are more likely to have schools from the Southeast in their initial top schools. However, some prospects will look to leave home and play for a school further away if schools outside their region better fit their needs, or if they don't consider any school in the area good enough, it's not a good enough fit for them. Similarly, most of the top schools for a prospect who values academics are going to be very similar to one another. For example, as Rice, you're often going to see that the recruits who are interested in your school are also interested in Vanderbilt, Northwestern, and Stanford due to their high academic prestige. Depending on the motivations and location of a recruit, it's possible for them to be open to hearing from any school, or they might already narrow down to their top 8 or even top 5. Once you're not within that range, if they go top 8, you're locked out. You can't do anything anyway. Once they get to the top 5, you're not in top 5. You can't bring them in for a visit, so you've wasted your time. So very important to know where they're at as far as that stage is concerned. Once recruiting starts, recruits will narrow down their top schools over time, going from open to top 8, top 5, top 3, and then ultimately they'll make a commitment. Your job is to stay above the cut line each week. Great recruiters will quickly recognize losing battles and pivot their resources to a different prospect with more promise of commitment. Don't throw away your resources wasting time on guys you're never going to get. You're never going to sign. After advancing the week, you'll be shown a recruiting summary of any changes to the recruit status, so you can quickly identify where you need to spend your time the next week. And then closing out this video, you see, and it ties into me wearing this Oregon swag in this video. This is Alex Casey, middle linebacker from high school, run stopper. He's committed to Oregon, middle linebacker, 4-star prospect, like I said. Interest level is first. In this screen, you'll see recruiting update, Coach XP goes, my school update. But this is your recruiting update. This lets you know where you stand with everyone who's on your board. You know, Casey committed. Wide receiver, the number 2 guy, Ruben, he has you listed first. He's already reached his top 3 schools, so on and so forth. You can sit here and look at that picture and analyze exactly what I'm seeing. But it gives you a breakdown. You also see at the very bottom of the screen, recruits 9, 10, 11. They had committed to USC, Fresno State, and Washington State. So, you know, just because you're Oregon and, you know, start the game, they're a top 5 school and they're a 4-star program. That 3-star quarterback said, hey, I'd rather take my ball and go play at Fresno State. I probably have an opportunity at playing time as opposed to going and sitting a pine at Oregon for 3-4 years. So, you know, just because you might be the big dog, don't necessarily mean that you're going to sign any and every recruit that you want. There's going to be battles. In this dynasty, you have upwards of 32 users all in one dynasty. So you're competing against maybe 31 other people. It makes it more dynamic, more realistic, more competitive. So it's going to keep you involved. But anyway, that's it for this video. That's going to end this one. I'll have some others I'm coming out with. I've already got everything put together, so I'll be releasing another videos here very shortly. Like I said earlier, make sure you guys are hitting the like button, comment down below, and subscribe. Ferdo Kings. And I'm out. I mean, this has been great discussion. Hopefully you guys are able to take some feedback from this. We'll talk about some more information in some later videos, but keep coming back to the channel if you enjoy the content, guys, and we'll talk to you later. Thank you.